that this has really, improved the acceptance of apprenticeship for good, or do you think that it's just a temporary phase, or it's going to now stay on and build on it?
A good question. I just answered that. I would keep my fingers crossed because of the
Mhm.
lack of migrant labor and the need to increase the number of people. That is one point. And two, because of the impact on the finances of most companies and to reduce costs, we have learned in COVID that we can live with much less people, much less consumption, much less everything. So I think this has triggered off a thing like saying, okay, why don't we look at some people have been let go and some people have been turned back from wherever they went. Uh, in the formal sector, I mean, if you go down to some of the industries in the south, they were running on almost 60-70% of migrant labor and migrant people. So that's not there. So that has given it a real fillip to engage apprentices because it reduces their cost and also gets them the headcount. So I do hope that this will be an impetus and they see the good in this and continue with this program and not just go back when it is easy to sort of get somebody from somewhere else. I'm not very sure, but as long as this what you call the sword of COVID is hanging around and pandemics are hanging around, I think this will go on. That is my general feeling, at least in most of the industries that are not so big or not so professionally run. As far as the professional industries go and the large ones go, especially some of the automobile industries, for them, it's a source of very large labor force at a low price. And that's why they have this contract labor. That's why they have this. Is it all kosher? Is it all this thing? I'm not going to get into it because you saw the trouble that went on in this front. So I'm not getting into that. But hopefully, this impetus that has taken place for the good or the bad reasons will continue, and we would see more and more apprentices in. But for that, we also need to. There are certain areas that Sabina spoke about. We work in silos. What the center does between two ministries and what the state does, they're all different. Sometimes I find a very funny competition in trying to get numbers. It's not the quality of training. We have trained so many thousand people, and on what? Where are their jobs? What is the outcome? I've been part of these, and we offer jobs. We offer jobs to, let us say, we see 8,000 people in a job mailer. We offer jobs to 1,000, 100 join. Because those 1,000, I tell you what, they are from the hinterland. You offer them a job in a large city like Chennai or Coimbatore or Mumbai or Pune, and you offer them the salary, they don't even have enough to eat. Whereas if they go back to their villages, they have a piece of land, they live in their house, they get some money, and they're just there. So there are certain things that we need to do. If you look at it holistically, we have to move some of these training programs back into perhaps agri-based industry where they don't have to move out. Smart agriculture, repair of small, they can be entrepreneurs or micro entrepreneurs by repairing tractors, pumps, IoT for agriculture, or even be agricultural officers. There are a lot of engineers who are sons of farmers who go back to their farms who don't want to till the land. So we need to look at it, have a very holistic approach to all this, how we are training people. Sabina spoke about cognitive skills versus hand skills. Sabina, let me tell you, hand skills are going to disappear in large industry.
Mhm.
The more and more automation that is coming, the less and less repetitive jobs to do by hand. There are certain cognitive skills that we have to reskill and upskill people. We'll have to know how to program machines and repair machines. I'm talking of large industry. I'm not talking of MSMEs. I'm not talking of, and not because they don't want to have labor, because if you are having a world-class product and you have to have repeatable quality, there is no option for you. And that is happening even in the IT industry, where a number of people are losing their jobs because there are new bots and new things that are coming up which are able to do things what needed people. So our while we are looking at training and skilling for today, we need to start training and skilling for tomorrow, because they say that almost 50-60% of the jobs that will come in 5 years don't exist today. And that's the rate at which we are changing. If they don't exist today, what are we training people for? And how do we know? We need to look at, I don't know, whoever has a crystal ball, maybe Jan and Sabina, and these are people who are working in that area, say, okay, this may be what is required. I've been talking to HR people. What are you doing for skills that are required 5 years from now? Are you trying to build them from now on? Nobody has an idea. So we're going to have this dichotomy all the time. We'll be training people for today, and that tomorrow the today is useless. So somehow I always said that when you look at training for today, let's get the industry in. One of the suggestions that we said, Sabina spoke about it, I think, where we, same thing as sandwich course, go back to a 5-year engineering course. If you're an engineer, do 3 years, go work for 1 year, come back. For work, the company doesn't pay you. It's a part of your course. Go work and make it compulsory for companies to take people. They don't need to bother because they don't have a payout. It's a part of your course. You're paying a fee. You're learning for 1 year. You get back for the final year, write your exam, write your this thing, which means then you would have picked up skills that are required when you get out. Today, you take a fresh engineer. He has no skills that are required in the corporate world, unless he's done something beyond his education in terms of reading books and writing an exam. Sorry, I'm a little tough about this, but this is the situation that we're seeing.
It's good to hear your opinion.
Yeah, and also the professors have no idea. These two are running on parallel tracks, academia on one track and corporates industry on another track. So we're trying to bring these together. We said, why don't you bring the professors in, not as interns, but embed them into industry for 3 months in a year, just like they do in many other countries. It's a sabbatical for them, but they don't go study, they work in an industry. So what happens then? You're bridging this gap. That is one. And then last thing I would like to talk about between hand and head skills. What are we doing with parents? Parents want their children to get a degree which is not a vocational degree. I'm happy this new education policy talks of a degree which is vocational. We need to embed this from class 8 and see if they have. Most parents think that somebody works by hand. If he works, it's not good enough. And everybody thinks that the best job to get is a government job sitting behind a desk. Sorry, we need to change that attitude, because as long as the parents are pushing, so it's up to us to make all these changes and to bring about a very holistic approach and talking to all the stakeholders. Otherwise, we will be having these issues. I'm not saying that everybody talks to every stakeholder. Each of us have a part, but all these parts have to gel together like a jigsaw puzzle.
Absolutely.
And who's having this overall view? Somebody has to be there saying, like, okay, this is what we're looking at. We agree upon this. This is the common thread. This is your business. This is your business. And please measure and verify what we are doing so that we have impact on the ground, not numbers on paper. We need to see what is the outcome. So that's what I think we should be doing. So I hope this movement sticks, even though it has come because of COVID. I hope we start improving. At least we are talking, all of us, and now it's time to implement.